What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Live and Learn. This is my favorite show because this is where we have entrepreneurial moms, moms that have specialized interests, moms that support something that we support too, that come to the show and share this information with us. And today we have Stacy Johnson on the show today, and I'm super excited to talk with you, Stacy, because I feel like what you're about to bring to the table, not a lot of women are talking about. I mean, we've had this MOMnation group now. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So we've been doing this for 10 years. We have about 12,000 moms in this group. And I got to tell you, I don't think we've had this conversation come up once. And that's scary because what you're all about, Stacy, and I'll let you take the floor here and tell your story and get into a little bit more depth about this, but you're here to talk to us about the leading cause of death in women.
Yes. Thanks for the intro. So yeah, I'm a heart health advocate, and you're right on. The Go Red for Women movement from the American Heart Association started over 10 years ago because of this reason. Heart disease is the number one killer in men and women, but because it's the number one and many women don't know, we need to do advocacy and get the word out. And when you see the little pink ribbon, you know, it's breast cancer awareness. When you see the pink ribbon and you see other ribbons, but the little red dress pin, I should have had one. I probably have one somewhere on my desk. I should have brought one. Has that recognition is missing. And that little red dress is what we associate with heart disease. So this mission of getting the word out for women to understand their risks is enormous.
Huge. And which is why I'm so excited to have you here today, because we have talked with many people from the American Cancer Society. Last year or earlier this year, that was a big push for us. We were talking about breast cancer. We were talking about lung cancer, like all of these things. And never once, again, I'll say it just like when I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have never talked about heart health. And I'd love to, if you could share just a little bit about why you get into this. Is there something, with your story, with you personally, that sort of encouraged you to head in this direction and to change as many lives as you have been changing? And then if you could share with us a little bit about maybe some statistics, maybe some things that we should look for as far as symptoms that might indicate to us, hey, there's a deeper problem here. You might want to have it looked into. I know I'm asking you a lot of questions right now. Or is there a certain age where this is something that we should start, having in our medical routine, where we add it to the things that we do on a yearly or semi-yearly basis, all the things?
Okay. So first, coming back to the comment about cancer. So heart disease will actually kill more people than all forms of cancer combined. So it is our number one thing to be focused on. And the good news is the things you do to be heart healthy are the same things you do to prevent other diseases. So that's good. We'll get into that. So to my story, so I am the mom of 3 boys. They're all teenagers now, but when my now 18-year-old was about 2, I looked at his feet and I was like, oh my gosh, they look just like my dad's. And I froze because my dad had had his first heart attack before he was 30. And my uncle had sudden cardiac arrest and died at 39. And my grandfather died at 49. So now I'm seeing, I have 3 boys, and this risk, like, whoa, heredity is not on their side, but what can I do? So I went to a casting call for a spokesperson position for the American Heart Association, really just to get educated so that I could prevent this in the men in my family. But of course, through the process of getting educated, I realized actually, as a woman, all of us women, we also are at risk because 1 in 3 men and 1 in 3 women will die of heart disease. So it just had the family link, but also, became part of my DNA to make heart health a part of the daily routine. So I started doing advocacy work really out of the necessity to protect my own family, but then realized there's so many other families that don't know. And I also had grown up this way with heart disease as part of the conversation, but I really wasn't sure, what do I do to mitigate our risks? So
Sure.
that's kind of how I got started. And to your question about, okay, what about our age and what do we do and all of this, like, how do we make this part of our medical, plans? So for me, I have a more progressive, like, I go to the cardiologist, and I have been doing so since I was in my 30s because of the family history, but it's not normal. But it just felt right to have more data. I'm also an engineer by training, so I like the data. So I go every 2 years to a cardiologist, and I have an EKG, a stress test, and an echocardiogram. That's for me. So the message there is that, just ask your doctor. When I turned 50, my doctor, my regular GP asked, what about the cardiologist? I'm like, well, I've been on that for 20 years. So it is not necessarily always going to be something that your doctors advocate for. And in fact, I've had a few run-ins with chest pains. And when I was young and didn't look like a textbook person, you had to advocate. I had to know to say, no, I want this test done. So a lot of research has been done on men, medications have been done for men. So there is still like a little bit of a gap where not everybody knows. Even your doctor may not know of the risks, or they may just look at you and say, well, you're young, you're fine. So you do have to do some advocacy. So what can you do? So the good news in all of this, even though it's such a terrible stat, is that 80% of our risk factors can be mitigated by lifestyle changes and choices. So that's the good news. So no smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, a healthy BMI, avoiding obesity and diabetes, eating more vegetables, move your body with exercise, sleep, all of the normal kind of health things, more fruits and veggies on your plate, lean meats and proteins. It's a very similar conversation for all kind of disease prevention, right? When you look at the top influences on disease, right? Smoking, obesity, diabetes, those are going to be your big hitters. So avoiding those. Yeah.
Love it.
So I'll pause there.
And
I think I hit them all, but we can dive in deeper to anyone or more questions.
Well, and this might be a really silly question, but I had the question, and I'm sure that others have it too. But what is heart disease?
Right. So there's a lot of different flavors of heart disease, right? And there's a lot of people who have congenital defects. They may have a hole in their heart. You might have heard people say that. You can have damage to your heart valve. So there's lots of things like that that might be more mechanical or structural that you may be born with. The most common situation that we're encountering from lifestyle choices and maybe I shouldn't say most common because I'm not a cardiologist, but the one that I run into the most, I should say, is where your cholesterol is elevated and you're having blockages in your arteries and you need to have an intervention. As an example, my father, who was a smoker, right? We talked about him a little bit ago about how he had his first heart attack before he was 30. Well, he did not change his behaviors. So for him, he had high cholesterol, and then the smoking causes constriction in your arteries. So he had blockages all over. And so they had to like reroute things, and he would have heart attacks because of that. So in my experience, so there's a slide deck that they send me out with oftentimes, and they go through all the different flavors of heart disease and different kind of, myocardial, all the techie language, and people don't resonate with it, right? But it's basically like a wiring problem. Like the blood flow can't go where it needs to go. Same thing with stroke. That is between your brain and your heart, right? So you need to maintain these healthy behaviors to avoid these problems. And the list of mitigatable risk factors will get you there.
So if I hear you correctly, if there's a family history, get in with a specialist, start getting things checked out, maintained, a baseline anyway, right? So that we can see when things go haywire if they do. What if I don't have a family history? What sort of symptoms could indicate that there's an issue? Like, I'm a mom and I have lots of aches and pains throughout the day that I'm just like, oh, whatever. It's not my turn yet. I got to get to soccer practice, So I think as women, oftentimes we just kind of dismiss the signals that we're getting from our body, and we shouldn't, right? But what sort of signals are going to be really dangerous to dismiss, if any?
Yeah, this is a really great and important question. And in fact, some years ago, Elizabeth Banks, she's an actress. You may know her from different movies. They actually did like a little kind of commercial YouTube thing. It's called Just a Little Heart Attack. And it shows this. It shows her portraying a mother, because in the little show, she's getting her kids ready for school and it's spastic. The husband's going in and out. There's all these things happening, but she's having a heart attack. And you see her through this little video dismissing symptoms as, oh, I'm just tired or I'm stressed or whatever. So this is really an important issue. With men, they often will have a chest pain that feels like an elephant on your chest, and then pain radiating down their left arm. That's a very common kind of signature. You see it in the movies, right? But for women, symptoms actually do manifest differently in women. Sometimes it can be the chest pain in the left radiating, but it also could be lower back pain or jaw pain. It could be flu-like symptoms, which, it could be even nauseous. So it gets tricky because you can't just be running off to the hospital every time you don't feel well either. Right. So there's a balance that you have to strike. So the main thing is to know your numbers, right? You know what your blood pressure is supposed to be. Like we have a pulse ox, the little one that you put on your finger, like at the hospital. You can just buy those anywhere, and just on Amazon or whatever. And then we have a blood pressure cuff at home as well. So we know our numbers, so you can tell if something's going wonky. And then also just trust your gut, because if you are experiencing symptoms of a heart attack or stroke, early intervention is going to be the key to successfully getting past it. And I heard an interesting thing from, I was in a CPR class, and the teacher was an EMT, and he said, when you call 911, and they arrive, sometimes people aren't doing that because they're afraid of costs, but you don't pay unless you take the ride. So if they come and they check you out and they're like, nope, I think you should just go to your general doctor. You're not having a heart attack. You're just, unwell. That's good to know, right? Because you can't do the reverse. I've heard cases in my network as a volunteer there, especially with the stroke, like early intervention is key. The symptoms for a stroke are different. So let me just finish off on the heart disease thing is, trust yourself. Like if like this just isn't right, we moms sometimes don't go seek medical advice. So know your numbers, have your way to test that, and then go to the doctor. And then for stroke, it has different symptoms. So you may see their face drooping. They may not be able to lift their arm. They'll slur their speech and maybe say words that are jumbled up. And that's where call immediately, because if the intervention isn't done very quickly, then they can lose mobility or have permanent brain damage from a stroke. So the net is you have to kind of trust yourself and know yourself. And sometimes, because the symptoms manifest so similarly to other things that we tend to blow off because we have to continue, it's just kind of important. I know one of the volunteers that I work with, she was running. She looked like a runner, like she was super fit and she was healthy and everything health-wise was going well from her, but she had unmitigated stress. She was running and she just didn't feel right. And she went into the doctor and they were like, well, you're going across the street to the cath lab. You'll be getting a stent today. And she was like, no, I got to go pick up my kids from school. Like this is how fast it happened. And wow. She's a fellow spokesperson, but she thought, I just don't feel right. But she knew to go, and thank God she did, because she went and needed a stent instantly. And that would have resulted in a heart attack had she not gone in.
Holy smokes. So help me paint the picture for somebody who might just be getting started with this. We go to a cardiologist.
Yeah. In your insurance or whatever plans you use may require a referral, but yes, you want to have a consult from a cardiologist. Your GP can do a a baseline EKG and they might say, yeah, everything looks fine in your X age with Y risk factors. So risk factors include aging, right? So unfortunately, we can't outrun that one. It's coming for all of us at some point. It's just when, right? Also, women of color have even more, a higher chance. It's even more of an issue with women of color. So that's a factor, right? The demographic. And then the other risk factors are things like smoking, obesity, diabetes, your weight, even sleep. So I read an article. I used to gain, as a mom, you might resonate with this. I used to gain bandwidth by just not sleeping, right?
Yeah.
And in July 2015, I remember this, I read an article, it was a published study that said if you sleep like less than 6 hours, if you sleep less than 6 hours a day, it's the equivalent on your body of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And I was like, ooh, I can't be a heart health advocate and be smoking, right?
Yeah, yikes.
So even sleep can be, causing you a higher risk because of what it's doing inside your body. Yeah.
That's huge for us.
Right.
Huge for moms. Like, I just want to say it louder for those in the back. So we get the whole newborn thing. And I feel like that's where we get into the routine of not sleeping. We're like, okay, we can do this. What? It's already tomorrow. How'd that happen? And then it just snowballs from there, and it continues into, okay, well, late at night is the only time where I can have some time to myself to do the things that I want to do, or to get back to my messages, or to do, whatever it is. So I found myself, my kid's 10, and I'm finally right now am starting to go to bed at a more reasonable hour, like, 10, 11 o'clock at night versus midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 a.m. And I'm up bright and early in the morning to get ready for school and to start the day. And just recently have I started getting more than 6 hours. So thank you for sharing that. Super important in my world. And I know in everybody else's world out there too, because of course our audience is a bunch of moms out there. So we go to the cardiologist, and this is my last question, what do we say? Are we just like, hey, here I am, I've never seen you before, walk me through it? Or is there a goal that we should have for that first appointment?
Yeah, just a baseline. I mean, sort of like when you go to the OB, right? They have certain tests that they do. It'll be a similar thing with the baseline. Your general doctor could also do an EKG. So the EKG, they put these little leads on you. They just look like kind of stickers, and then they hook up a bunch of cords. And then it takes basically a digital mapping of your heartbeat, and it can show irregularities. And if you have irregularities, then there'll be follow-ups. For me, I always have a normal EKG, but my son, the one who just turned 18, he's had one that has some irregularities. Now, it could be that they did the test wrong, right? So then there's protocols, but they also will do a stress test where you have that same, this is usually kind of like the next step. Not everybody does this. Like if you're 30 and you're going for a pre-screen, they may not ask for a stress test. The stress test is the same leads, but you run on a treadmill or walk on a treadmill to try to get your heart rate to 88% capacity. And then they make sure that under stress, meaning the running of the stress, that your heart behaves the way it should. So I've done a stress test a few times. And then the echocardiogram is very similar to an ultrasound, from not in the technology way, but from the mom way of experiencing it, right? It's very similar. You know how when you're pregnant, they put the jelly on your belly, and then they use the little lead to read. They do the same thing in your heart. So for me, I have damage in one of my heart valves from pneumonia, from coughing crazy. So Now we have to keep an eye on that, right? So here I have this family history, and then it caused by different things. So everything goes together, right? But those are the 3 tests that I've had regularly. Your doctor may prescribe something differently or have a different workup, but you should just be able to, provided your insurance doesn't require a referral, should just be able to say, I'd like a baseline for heart health. And let me just talk about kids for a quick second, since I have 3 boys and they are athletes. This may be relatable for the MOMnation with other kids in sports. You see it in the news where someone dies in the field of a heart attack, that type of thing. So with my boys starting in 6th grade, I had the baseline EKG and the echocardiogram done. And I'm part of the Chandler School District, and they actually have a program where when you go through for your sports physicals for $25 out of pocket, you can get those tests done. And I thought that was a great, I mean, for $25 to have the peace of mind to know that structurally and electrically, everything is fine in my kid's heart. And with the family history, you know, I just wonder, like, well, what if my dad had that done when he was in 6th grade? Would it have been a different outcome? Technology was different then, but you know, we can only go forward. But at this point, my brother is a couple years younger than me, and I just turned 50, and we have no signs of any kind of heart disease at all. We do the lifestyle changes, right? We exercise, we sleep, we drink our water, all the things, vegetables, you know, but to break the chain of what heart disease has had a hold on our family with us and then pass that to our kids, you know, it's important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what a crazy important conversation this was. Stacy, thank you for your time and your expertise. And I know, or I feel, I don't know, but I feel like we just kind of like got the tip of the iceberg here. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to this whole thing for mamas out there. So can you tell us just a little bit about Red Inspired Fitness? Plug your website if you want, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say 2 main places where you can get information. So the Go Red for Women movement through the American Heart Association has a website, goredforwomen.org. And then I have, out of this work, people will come to me. I'll do talks like this and they'll say, okay, I heard what you said, but I don't know what to do. So that's where my Red Inspired Fitness is a Facebook community where we talk about heart health and we practice our heart healthy habits and make them a part of our daily routine. And so anyone is welcome to join me there. And then you can ask additional questions and then be practicing your heart healthy behavior on the daily.
You are amazing. Thank you again so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for doing what you do. You're out there changing lives for women every day. And that is something that we do here from, with MOMnation. That's our tagline. So it's a really great connection here. And I appreciate knowing you. I appreciate meeting you. Thank you again for all that you do. And I'm just really glad to have had the opportunity to have you on the show today.
Much appreciated. Thanks for the opportunity.
You are very, very welcome. All right, guys, if you want to check out any of our previous episodes, we've got like hundreds and hundreds of live and learns now, guys. We've been doing this for so long. Hop on over to our YouTube channel. It is at MOMnation USA. That's our handle. Scroll down just a little bit. You will see the playlist in red, and that is the live and learn playlist. There's a few other playlists there that you can check out as well, and I invite you to do so. If you prefer to listen podcast style, maybe you, like Stacy does, you run a lot, you bike a lot, you hike a lot, because that's good heart healthy things to do, then on your favorite podcast platform, do a quick search for MOMnation Talk Radio. There you'll find us, all of our shows, all the episodes. Do the like thing, the follow thing, the notification. We really appreciate it, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.